It's been 20 years since the last RoboCop video game, and 36 years since the original movie came out. Who the hell was even asking for this video game to be released in the first place? Imagine being given millions of dollars to develop a video game and your dumbass comes up with the idea to create a RoboCop game. These are the thoughts that I and many must have had when we first heard that RoboCop Rogue City was in development. But my gosh, did they prove us wrong. We are all fools! Fools, I tell you! Take-On managed to take a half-human, half-robot police officer with the personality of a cheese grater and translate that into a game that has so much character that it makes me want to watch the original movies. I won't watch them because I am a millennial with a tiny attention span, but it did make me consider it, and that's something. Before we start the review, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel out quite a lot. Thank you. Going into this, I only had a small idea of who RoboCop was, but for those like myself who have not seen the movies, I will attempt to fill you in. Alex Murphy is a decorated police officer with an extremely bright future ahead of him. After achieving a kill-death ratio of 0 to 1, his brain, face, and some other pieces, not including his large meat, is converted to RoboCop, a heavily armoured cyborg with no memories of his former life. That's if you ignore his constant flashbacks, that is. Equipped with a huge gun and lips that can only be compared to Angelina Jolie's, RoboCop is tasked with trying to hunt down a new mysterious villain with an incredibly clever name, New Guy. A robot policeman named RoboCop and a new baddie named New Guy. My god, the creativity is unbelievable. Not only do we have to take care of this new crime wave that has hit Detroit, but we also need to investigate the mega corporation named the OCP, which has taken control of the Detroit Police Department and may have an informant that is causing major issues in our precinct. The game takes place in the dystopian future of 2043, which is only 20 years from now. However, because the movie was made in the 80s, that's when I actually thought the story took place until I was making this review. Sure, there is AI, but there is also VHS tapes in the game, so who can blame me for being a little confused? All jokes aside, the story, while simple and a little corny at times, is actually incredibly charming. RoboCop does have a bland personality, but he's also somehow extremely lovable. Pair that with a drug addict informant, a newbie cop sidekick, and a boss that hates women.
I just want to snap her little neck.
And you have yourself a great dynamic cast of characters. Each main mission has its own small map that you can somewhat free roam around. There are hidden objectives that can be found if you are the type of person to explore, but if you want to just beeline for the main story, you can. The side missions do a great job of adding a variety to the game. In a main mission, you will be going from room to room shooting people in their genitals, and then in a side mission, you'll be helping an old lady find her cat, which leads to more genitals being shot off, or helping a friend find a certain VHS tape. Yes, you guessed it, more genitals being blown completely off. The story does flow quite well. Some of the side missions are a bit dull, but the main content never gets boring. Some people may complain that it is a short game, but there are dialogue options that can change the outcome of certain things, so there is replayability if you want to choose those different options. The levels do contain items that you can pick up, such as stolen wallets and incriminating documents. Other than completing missions, this is really the only way to gain XP. I understand why it's there, but you'd be deep into it, like a super intense mission, and you'd be stopping every 2 seconds to make sure you have inspected every corner of the game, so that you didn't miss out on the extra points. I think it may have been better if XP was earned more by getting headshots or, again, blowing off genitals. Some might ask how playing as a heavily armoured robot that barely takes damage can be fun. Well, fear not, because I had a huge blast with the gameplay. RoboCop can take a lot of bullets before he dies, but that does not mean this game is easy on the harder difficulties. Playing on normal, I never died, and I think that's how it's meant to be. We are sort of meant to feel unstoppable, and it really does feel like a unique first-person shooter because of that. It feels badass when running through an onslaught of bullets, just ping ping ping, just to punch an enemy square in the face, or picking them up and throwing them against the wall. I think if RoboCop did die easier, it would just take away from the gameplay experience. I wouldn't have expected that being almost undefeatable would be so much fun. While making this game, Take-On must have really thought, what normally makes a game shit? Well, for starters, don't you find it boring when there are not many enemy types? BAM! RoboCop Rogue City is constantly introducing new types of baddies that alter the way you play. What else? Oh, when there isn't a large variety of weapons. Kablamo! There is heaps of different types of weapons to use and ways of killing. Seriously, it's like they really understood what players actually wanted. There is a skill tree that isn't convoluted and it's simple and easy to understand. No boring mini games, a menu that is easy to navigate, and a controller scheme that is simple yet does everything you need it to. Just when you think you have the game figured out, a few hours in, they add the ability to customize your pistol. Like I said, there is heaps of different weapons in the game, but I mainly just used my pistol because I could customize it in the exact way that I wanted to. This thing was so heavily modified in the end that it was only missing a lip balm for those before mentioned thick, juicy lips. As I mentioned before, there is a really simple skill tree that is broken down into categories. Leveling is slow to begin with, but you can unlock heaps of abilities as you progress, and they are really creative. I will only mention a few of my favourites to save time, and but mainly because I'm too lazy to list them all. The main ones I had early on were ones where you focused on bonus XP and opening up better dialogue. I then started to focus on abilities that would let me stun or shield myself, or charge up to enemies to absolutely crush them. You can unlock abilities that let you use power boxes to heal, but my favourite ability was being able to ricochet bullets off walls and kill enemies that were behind cover. Because it can take a while to unlock some of these abilities, I think a lot of players will have a very unique experience, especially early on. One thing that took me a little to get used to was how slow and clunky RoboCop is. You walk slowly and sprint like a morbidly obese man. You turn slowly and your movement is limited with no jumping ability. It seems like all that may be a negative, but it actually works really well within the narrative. As a whole, the gameplay feels different than most first-person shooters out there. You won't be sliding around and ducking behind cover. Instead, you will feel like an unstoppable force with the freedom to kill enemies as you see fit. The graphics, they're interesting. The faces look realistic for the most part, but the facial animations are goofy at times. And what is up with the hair in this game? It has a mind of its own. The rundown town you will visit a few times in the game has heaps of detail. Shops look like they were open for trade. It's littered with flying rubbish. The puddles reflect the lighting, and the civilians talk to each other and have conversations. It's the type of game where when you look down, you want to see your own legs when you're walking. It is missing that detail, unfortunately, but I'll give him a pass for that. The original voice actor for RoboCop reprised his role, which I thought was cool. Overall, the voice acting was point on and no major complaints there. Sound design was cool, the guns sound meaty and they're satisfying when you get a headshot, and the metal clanks of our footsteps are a constant reminder that we are a large metal man. There were some glitches, at least on the PS5 version. Each cutscene has a weird bug where it cut from person to person. Here it is slowed down, I can't really explain what it is. It was consistent through the whole game, and it's something I've never seen before. A small handful of times the cutscene dialogue wouldn't line up with what was happening on the actual screen. That was really awkward, especially during the final boss fight. Sometimes when you're throwing bodies against the wall, they would just disappear into nothing. Other than that, there was no crushing or game resetting bugs. RoboCop Rogue City showed me that it is still okay to make slower paced, more unique first person games. I only got it because the gameplay looked interesting and different, and I wasn't disappointed. Overall, I was surprised with how well this game turned out. I was a tad worried it would be a huge flop, and while I wouldn't care if they never released a sequel, I'm glad I had my 3 or 4 days with RoboCop Rogue City. I give it a 7.5 out of 10. I will definitely not be watching the movies though. If you enjoyed this review, please consider subscribing. It would mean so much to me. More reviews coming out every week or so, and opinion pieces in between. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, see ya.